Okay, well, hello and welcome everyone. Let's see. It really is good to be together tonight and to sort of continue our journey through this year's Jewish Music Heritage Learning Series, taking a look and a listen back at the history of Chicagoland Jewish music. Um, So last fall, we were joined by Dr. Judah Cohen from Indiana University, also of Cantor Julie Staple fame. Wonderful mentor and professor that we are so glad led her to cantorial school. He led us through two wonderful jam packed sessions, traveling back in time through the history of Chicagoland Jewish music. And of course, those sessions are not a prerequisite for tonight, but if you are interested in viewing them, we'll slip a link into the chat, which will contain both archive videos. So, tonight and continuing over the next few months, we'll be taking a deeper dive into a few of the prominent figures who have made their mark on Jewish music, not only in our area, but around the world. We welcome back to Am Shalom our colleague and friend, Cantor David Berger, who will share with us on the life, music, and legacy of Max Janowski. Just a little bit about our guest scholar. Cantor David Berger serves as cantor of KAM Isaiah Israel Congregation in Hyde Park, Chicago. Of course, Max Janowski's congregation. He serves as the scholar in residence for the American Conference of Cantors, and he is also pursuing a PhD in medieval rabbinics at the Chicago Theological Seminary. A hometown guy, Cantor Berger grew up in Buffalo Grove and spent his summers at Osrui. Sought out as both a scholar and a performer, and we're so glad that he has been with us for both of those things. And many times, he has taught semester courses at 3 different campuses of HUC-JIR, including one with me, which was such a fun thing to do together. Cantor Berger has released 2 albums of Jewish music, one entitled Chalomti Chalom, I Dreamt a Dream, a collection of Jewish peace songs in Hebrew, English, and Yiddish, and Hegyon Libi, The Meditations of My Heart, original compositions and new adaptations of traditional melodies, which is the embodiment of his vision of the 21st century Jewish worship. And with very exciting news, there is a 3rd album, which will soon be released, featuring art songs by Jewish American refugee composers entitled Refuge. So we'll keep you updated, and perhaps I'll say a word about this album and its release event later on at the end of our program. Cantor Berger, welcome, and
Oh,
the
thank you.
Zoom is yours.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. Such a joy and a delight to be here with all of you. I love doing stuff for Am Shalom in so many ways, not only because I have great friends, but also y'all are just fun. So I have a PowerPoint to share. I know that means it's less easy for us to all see each other, but I think we'll get over it. And I have I figured tonight's class is about 6 hours long, right? So we have plenty of time to talk about it all. Undoubtedly, we won't get through everything I was hoping to do, so we'll skip away along as we go. So we're talking about Max Janowski. This is a pretty rare picture of him that I really like that gives a good character of the guy here. Um, for whom we just marked his, believe it or not, 30th yard site, which feels just crazy in so many ways. And so we're gonna do some deep dives into parts of his history. We're gonna look at some of the great genres of music that he composed, and we're gonna think about what is exactly the role of a musician like this in the future. So first, we're gonna come back to the beginnings here. Um, so Max Janowski is the son of Chaim Janowski, who you see there. It says was born in Poland and died there in Tokyo. We'll learn more about that a little bit. Chaim Janowski was um, identified by people as a lovely, what's called Baal Tefillah, which means not a cantor, but someone who had a nice knack for davening in shul, you know, for leading services, and was had a nice sense of melody and knew the nusach and things like that, but wasn't a real cantor in the position. Now, Max's mother, Miriam Rupp Janowski, actually they divorced very early in Max's life, and it was a very non-amicable divorce. And Max stayed with his father, and his mother actually left Germany earlier and went to Israel or Palestine at the time, and she was a very successful opera singer. Really did many major roles at opera companies around Germany before such things became impossible. And as soon as she came to Israel, she married one of Israel's earliest and most important opera conductors, Galinkin, who was just a huge figure in the world of opera in the beginning days of Israel, and did concerts. And um, only when she got to Israel did she really care at all about doing anything Jewish. Like, really, when she was in Germany, her whole life was just straight up classical opera. And in Israel, she figured that, so she developed a repertoire of sort of different kinds of Jewish music. And she actually, she outlived Max. She lived to be over 100 years old. Um, she maintained a voice studio really right up until when she died. And she was like called Madame Janowski or something like that, and she had a very continental flair to herself. My teacher Ellie Schleifer remembers very fondly meeting her, and the sort of funny airs that she put on in every situation. Right, I love this poster for the Barber of Seville for a production that she was in. Right, it's hard to see, but the amongst the performers there is the first one says Miriam Rapyanovska as the first performer listed there, and with her husband conducting. So quite a family to be born into of two really extraordinary people. And he really began with music pretty early, but really fundamentally as a pianist and not actually as a composer. He never in his life received formal composition training, but here's the conservatory he went to, right? Conservatorium der Musik, and here's his main teacher here, Moritz Meyer-Mar, who was a really well-regarded piano teacher at the time. Right, and he was really focused on being a classical pianist. He also did learn, because it was a useful skill at the time, to play the organ, and did play for synagogue services in Germany when he was a kid. And right, like he's really young when he's doing some of these things, you know. So right, already right, he's born in 1912. So here in 1931, right. So do your math. He's not too old, right? He's still like basically 20 years old, and here he is accompanying Pinchas Lavender, who is a really prominent Yiddish singer, on a recorded album that was really published. So here we're hearing Max barely 20 years old, Max Janowski playing Ich tanz und mein Herz weint. All the greatness of a lounge pianist.
In dem Glanz viel mit Leid, den ich will glücklich nur sein, wenn ihr singt, wie es klingt bei dem Tanz, dass der Mädel ist aber nicht der Mann.
I'd like to keep going, but we got a lot. But isn't that fun to hear? Like he's like 20 years old, right? Really fun to hear that. There's a few other tracks like this that he recorded at the time of these like fun Yiddish songs. And this it does feel very loungy, right? Which the funny thing is, in some of Max's pieces where he wrote out his accompaniments, I often feel that there's like there's a slight lounginess to some of his written accompaniments that I've always enjoyed. And then you'll find out, well, here's where it comes from, right? He spent early time playing those kinds of songs. He didn't only record those kinds of songs, but he was also recording here with Cantor Mayer Goldwasser, who was a prominent cantor in Poland and came to Germany to record. So here's Achenu Kol Beis Yisroel, right? Good old Chazonis. And so you're hearing like the Max Janowski that we know later. Here's the pieces that build him together, right? He's got his classical piano foundations at conservatory. He's playing for Yiddish folk songs and sort of theater songs, and he's accompanying cantorial lines. 20 years old.
Achenu kol beit Yisroel. Achenu kol beit Yisroel.
I want to play the whole track, but nebuch, right? There's actually things in there that I hear from the way that he responds to, even when I think about his later recordings, that are very similar to his style when you hear his own live performances much later in life. Now, this lady here, Max is some of you who knew Max, and I know there are people on this who actually knew Max personally. Probably knew Gretel also, right? His wife, who was really so beloved here in Chicago. You may not have ever known about Max's first wife, Ilsa here. Ilsa was also a pianist and a composer. And actually, she became later on a composer of some note. She was a professor at New York University of piano and composition. So she really, and she married a very famous lawyer in New York City, and so her archives are well preserved. And including in the archives are like some love letters that she and Max sent to each other way back, but they're all in German and hard to read. So someday someone will translate those things. But the story is actually I'll come back to more of the story once we get to where they're in when Max is here in Chicago. But know that here it was his first wife was a wonderful musician who rose to great prominence in the world here in America in classical music. So how did Max get out of Germany? There's a little bit of debate about exactly how it is that this happened. But supposedly, the story that he told, and now the problem with the stories that Max told is that he was a very well-known liar about anything to do with himself. That he made up the stories that he thought you would most want to hear. So, like, if you asked him, "Were you born in Germany or Poland?" he would base his answer based on the kind of person he thought you were. Like, would you think it better of him if he was German or Polish? And then he would give you that answer. So there's a lot of these kind of early facts about his life that are not well known because different people asked him and he gave them different answers because he just wanted them to like him, right? So he told whatever was the most impressive story. So the official story that Max told was that this Musashino Music Academy in Tokyo had a piano competition in Berlin, and the prize for winning the competition was a faculty position at this conservatory in Tokyo. And that Max says he won the competition, and off to Tokyo he went. And we see at the bottom it says Solistin here, Max Janowski Clavier, for this concert here in Japan. So it is 100% true that he did, in fact, go to Japan. That we know. People apparently have looked for records of such a competition, and it may have indeed been, it may have actually have happened. Hard to know. Um, there's no record that anyone's ever found that of a competition, but we do know that he did go, and he went, and his father came with him. So Max and his father Chaim came. His wife Ilsa came later. She waited a few years in Germany to try to see how things were going, and eventually she also did manage to get out and get to Tokyo to join them. Um, and actually, I've never been able to get this because I don't have, browsing privileges at the Japanese National Library. But while he was in Japan, he did record several albums of his own piano arrangements of Japanese folk songs. And these exist in the digital collections of the Japanese National Library. And I wrote very lovely letters to their librarians, and they wrote me back lovely rejections. So they would not share with me. Wouldn't it be fun to hear Max Janowski playing Japanese folk songs? But apparently you have to be, the next time anyone's in Tokyo, hit me up, and I'll try to get you to go to the library and get me a copy. So there he was in Japan for a while, and he stayed there really until his father died. They sort of rode out the better part of the war, and his father died, and then
Well, New York.
he's already playing a recording. My recordings. So I'm going to let him tell most of the next story here. So we're going to be listening to Max telling his own story of what happened. And it's a little bit hard to understand. This is a recording that from an interview he did with the Chicago Jewish Historical Society. It can be a little hard to understand, and we had a bit of an accent, right? And the recording is not the world's greatest, but it's still fun to hear the story. So we're going to hear Max tell the story of what happened as he came to America.
In New York, there were many people at the harbor, but I knew there was nobody waiting for me. So when you see so many people and nobody's waiting for you, you become a bit lonely. And of course, it was a question of making contacts, which, interestingly enough, I made via chess playing. Well, my uncle, David Janowski, of blessed memory, was a great chess player. He was one of the great grand masters of chess. And I knew that he used to hang out. It sounds irreverent, but it's a pretty good description from my uncle, I think. At the Manhattan Chess Club. And so I had a picture of my uncle, and I went up to the chess club, and I showed it to a man who had one of these longer plays, right? He was somewhat advanced, chronologically speaking. I said, do you know this picture? He looked and he said, my goodness, this is David Janowski. And I said, well, he's my uncle. And he said, do you play chess? I said, well, if you talk about David, I don't play chess.
My standards I do.
But if you talk about playing a game of chess, well, a good time. And he said, what is it that you are doing? I said, well, I compose, I play the piano. A Klezmer, of course, in Yiddish we say a klezmer. It means a musician, does all kinds of things. And so he said, you might be interested to meet somebody. And he introduced me to somebody by the name of Rabbi Cohen of blessed memory. He was affiliated with the United Synagogue of America, and they were preparing for their silver anniversary, the 25th anniversary. And he said, I understand you're a musician, why don't you come over and play for us, show us a little bit. And so I went over to the seminary, played. He gave me a script. It was called the Pageant. Is that what you pronounce it? Pageant. Mm-hmm. Then I heard myself say it sounded so strange. The Pageant of Youth. And I composed one of the numbers. I think it was something like the sun was going down. It was a rather sort of very sober and stern poetry. I was seated on a bench near the Hudson River and the sun was shining. At any rate, I composed it and played it for the people there. They liked it, and he commissioned me to do the whole world. And it was performed in Chicago. And a few weeks later, somebody mentioned to me that there was an opening at KAM. And Well, somebody timed it, whatever quality time, right? And so I came to KM Temple, which was at that time in Drexel Boulevard and 50th Street. What is it, the Cats, John? You have something about skip and something like that. Skip and jump, yeah. Hop.
Okay, right. So you hear, right? So in case you couldn't hear, right? He gets to New York. He doesn't know anybody. He goes to the chess club because his uncle David Janowski was a very famous chess player. So that's how he got in. He got a connection from the chess club to the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism. He showed them this piece, The Sun. They gave him a script. He wrote this piece, The Sun Goes Down, which you see there. And then they sent him on a tour with their pageant for their silver anniversary. The pageant was here in Chicago, and while he's in Chicago, he gets hit up for a job at KEM Temple. Right. So here's a report from the Chicago Daily Tribune of 1938 about the performance. Right. Right. So this is fun, right? The Silver Jubilee of the Night Synagogue began 5 days ago. We believe that remember, this is 1938. So keep in context that 1938, Jews in America are aware of what's going on in Germany. We know we don't know about the mass murders exactly, but we know that about the open anti-Semitism. Right. So the president of the United Synagogue says, we believe that what is wrong with the world is just as much moral and spiritual as economic. And then it says, tonight in the Terrace Casino of the hotel, the pageant of youth will be presented with the Chicago division of the Young People's League as host. The music was written by Max Janowski, formerly a leader in Germany and later in charge of the Japanese Imperial Academy of Music. Notice that the name of his position seems to have grown quite a bit. From like the Mosashino Music Academy, now he's the director of the Japanese Imperial Academy of Music, right? Once again, the man knew how to tell a good story. The pageant is based upon a plot by Rabbi Samuel Cohn, written by David Plotkin. The final episode describes what is probably the most critical period in Jewish history. What should be done, it is asked, in the face of increasing persecution and the threat of arrogant dictatorship? The spirit of youth calls for loyalty to the heart and soul of the Jewish ideal, devotion to justice, and the thirst for brotherly love, loyalty to the ideal of the fatherhood of God. It's a big message for a pageant of youth to be going in this moment. That's the event that gets Max the job, right? At KAM Temple. He does that fabulous performance, and he gets pushed over here. Now, this picture here is the old building. This is the KAM building. When you think about KM Isaiah Israel now, the building that we are currently in is the Isaiah Israel building, not the KM building. KM building is around the corner on Drexel, right? And these are current pictures of what it looks like. You still see it says, nor before whom thou standest, right above the ark still. Right? It's now the Operation Push. So at the time, the organist at KAM Temple was Arthur Dunham, who had just died, right when Max comes in town. Arthur Dunham was a very prominent organist in Chicago. In fact, he's most famous in Chicago. If anyone's ever been to the Chicago Temple downtown, it's that great church that's like in the bottom of the skyscraper thing. Arthur Dunham he was responsible for the building of the organ there at the Chicago Temple. It's an incredible instrument, by the way. Sang with it recently, and boy, is it great. So Dunham had been working in many synagogues. He was actually, before he came to KM, he was the organist at Sinai Temple. And actually he composed, though he's not Jewish, not a Jewish man. He composed a Sabbath morning service. So we'll listen for just a second to what his Sabbath morning service sounded like. So you get a sense of like just what the sound was that Max inherited here. This is me singing at the KM 170th anniversary. think the word you're looking for is goyish. Right? Like sort of straight up. Straight up like fake 19th century-ish neoclassical church music, right? Beautiful, elegant church music, right? So Max gets the gig, right? This is the Hyde Park Herald from right from his first time there, right? Rabbi Joshua Loth Liebman, beginning his 5th year as spiritual leader, who is fast becoming recognized as one of the most brilliant and outstanding leaders in Jewish life today. We'll open the first Sunday morning service, just so we're noting that. Sunday morning service, right, in October at 11 o'clock. His address will be, Has God Deserted the World? Right, in terms of our 1938 context here. Constant question on the tongue of every humanitarian and every thinking individual in these days of moral and physical upheaval. Professor Max Janowski, formerly head of the Academy of Music, again, a new name for the institution in Japan where he taught. Every time it's different. That's one of my favorite things about it. Who has recently been appointed choir master, will give an organ recital preceding the Sunday morning service. Right, so this is when he just started. Fun to have the Hyde Park Herald, by the way, for anyone who's ever interested in Chicago history, has fully searchable archives all the way back to the very beginnings of their existence, which is all the way in the 1800s. That you can find for free on the website. It's amazing. For anything you ever want to know about Chicago, and especially the South Side, I love it. So here he comes. He comes into the shul, right? We heard Arthur Dunham.
Cantor Liebman died very young, though, didn't he? The rabbi?
Rabbi Liebman? Yes. Rabbi Liebman died very young. Yeah. Yes, he did.
While he was still at KAM, or did he leave and go somewhere else?
Ooh, that detail I don't remember. I've looked. I mean, he was indeed someone who was recognized as really an outstanding leader of his time, but I don't remember if he might have moved. In my head, I think he moved. But that is a good detail. He's an interesting person to look up as in terms of Chicago rabbinic history.
He was going to be a superstar. I think he died at 40 or 41 or something, but he was like destined to be like on the level of the greats.
Yeah. One of the many great rabbis of KAM in our history who were extraordinary leaders. He's easily Googleable, I'll say, to find more about him. Right. What did Max inherit? He inherited that Dunham stuff, and he inherited, the Union hymnal. Right. The KM was the neighborhood dynamic. Right. KM and Isaiah Israel were a few blocks away from each other. Right. Those buildings still are, and KM was very much the German Jews, and Isaiah Israel tended to be more the Polish Jews. And the Germans love their hymns, right? So just right. Anyone know this good old tune? Early will I seek thee, on my refuge strong. Late prepare to meet thee with my evening song, though unto thy greatness I with trembling soar, yet my inmost thinking lies with thine eyes before. Right? Very goyish. Beautiful, lovely, nothing wrong with it. If you like that, great, you should have it. And right, that's what he inherited, right? And he didn't stick with it too long, right? So here he comes around and he writes very early his own sort of versions of hymns and really develops, and this is the interesting thing with Janowski, develops his own harmonic language, really unique to him, his own sound. So here's the same exact hymn, but Max's version. right? Very different feeling to it, right? The harmonies are not just typical. These are 1 4 5 1 hymn writing. It's minor, right? It's a really kind of lovely tune, is the truth. Um, right, and here's like look at this quote, right from when he's giving his own sense of what he wants to do. I wanted to bring the Jewishness back to music in the Reformed Temple, and I also wanted to bring Jewish music the dimension of good music in general. Like he he was not one to mince words. Um, he had no troubles saying what you might want to say about other people's music. Um, right, so here he was at KM starting in 1938. 1942 comes. He suits up and joins the military. He was playing in military bands. Apparently, he did a great tour of North Africa. Um, right, so he gets around and he comes back. And what does he do right away when he comes back? He comes to the synagogue and he restarts a choir that he had started before he left, the All American Chorus at the YMCA in Hyde Park. Now we think of Max really in terms of like we know him as like the Jewish musician that he was. It's important to remember that he was very active musically, not only in Jewish circles. He also was active within the sort of general choral scene of Chicago at the time, and amongst the like 25 different synagogues that he was going between all the time. He also worked at more than one Unitarian church, also as organist and composer. And there's actually some interesting pieces that he wrote for Unitarian services. Right. So here you are. Note this article is by Gretel Haas. Gretel meaning Gretel, who would later on become Gretel Janowski, right? Writing about the All American Chorus resuming, that he's back from his service, and they're going to start working on Elijah, right? And they're rehearsing on Tuesday evenings at 8:30 o'clock. I love how they had to spell out o'clock. Everyone interested in singing is more than welcome, and Ms. Gretel Haas assists him. Gretel was an accompanist when Max was doing all of his many things at many synagogues all over the town. Gretel was often the one sort of when Max couldn't come to rehearsals, she would go and lead rehearsals in his stead all over town, and she was an accompanist and a conductor of her own right. And I can say from I never met her, but everyone at KAM Isaiah Israel who knew her speaks of her with a reverence and a love that is beyond. Gretel was apparently amongst, like, as much as Max could be a little bit acerbic from time to time, right? She was just beloved for being absolutely sweet and an amazing hostess, and someone people really just enjoyed. He gets to work. In 1948, this review in the Tribune of a concert that he did. This is a really kind of a mixed review, one might say, right at Kimball Hall, this beautiful recital hall in the city. He appeared at a concert of sacred music and works in the Hebraic folk style, written by his conductor, guest soloist Miriam Golinkin, meaning his mother. Right, that's his mother. Right, in Israel she was Miriam Rap Janowska, but she took her husband's name at some point, Miriam Golinkin. So that's his mother. So the choir, whose principal mission is to participate in the religious services of the South Side Synagogue, gave its public performance as a testimonial to Mr. Janowski, who has completed his 10th year. The capacity audience responded enthusiastically. Here's the best part of this review. The singers are not to be judged by professional standards, nor even by those that pertain to the musical groups of various denominational colleges, for whom extensive rehearsal time is provided in the curriculum. Yet it was apparent that the choir was not without a broad understanding of its task. Right? It's a very delicate way for the reviewer to say they sounded terrible. Right? There is to men of Mr. Janowski's calling a constant challenge to preserve that which is ancient and worthy of continuation, and at the same time to be sensitive to the environmental nuances that can influence liturgical music without corrupting it. Isn't that like a beautiful statement? That's certainly my vision in life. Right? In much of his writing, as well as in performance, Mr. Janowski strikes an excellent balance between tradition and innovation. It's actually when he got back to Chicago after the war in these early years there that he wrote his first major full service, from which there are some of the melodies that we still continue at KAM Israel to do today, like his Shema, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu. That's in that service. There's a Micha Mocha in that service. It's very funny. I grew up at Beth Am, and my cantor, Arnie Schultz of blessed memory, always used to sing this Micha Mocha. That's from that 1947 service that Max wrote. That's Micha Mocha Ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha Nedar B'Kodesh. But what's funny is that Max and I gave up on doing that piece and didn't do it really ever. So when I got to KM Isaiah Israel and I realized that I've been singing this Janowski Micha Mocha my whole life, none of them at KM Isaiah Israel actually knew it. It had been totally forgotten at the synagogue. So I brought it back a little bit because I think it's a good tune. But it's there from his 1947 service that he really came back and started in earnest composing. And what is unique about Max's composing amongst his colleagues of this time is just how melody driven his pieces are. If you think about the other composers writing synagogue music at this time, Isidor Fried, it's a little earlier than the Max Helfman side, but still that world. These men are writing very complicated choral music, big cantor lines. It's not as much as like Janowski is not today thought of as like the great sing-along guy. At the core of Janowski's compositions is almost always a singable or hummable melody that you can really catch onto. He's not the amazing layered choral texture guy. He doesn't write a lot of fugues and that kind of stuff. He really centers around a singable melody line that you can attach yourself onto. And that is really because of his work with Rabbi Jacob Weinstein, who was trying to help him do that. Right, so here you see the Avodath HaKodesh Shel Kehilath Anshe Ma'ariv, right? That he wrote, and there's the Shema right there, Shema Yisrael, in a ridiculous key, which we would not do anymore, but now we do it in C major, so it's down quite a bit from there. Right, so here's how he writes about the mission of writing liturgical music. Right? You ask, how do you tell real Jewish music from the imitation? Take away the text, and if it still expresses the Jewish idiom, it's Jewish music. Certain sounds inherent in each language are best expressed through songs in that language. The particular sound of the Jewish song is essentially Oriental. The folk song gives you the true identity of the people. Much Jewish music of today merely imitates the ethnic flavor of the country of origin. Simply adding Hebrew or Yiddish text doesn't make it Jewish music. That's a big critique of a lot of Jewish music in the world, but he's really expressing something that he believed really passionately, which is that there's ethnicity contained within music. And that part of our experience as listeners and as synagogue participants is that we're singing our identity as much as the words are identity. The melody itself, the harmonies, the way that it is constructed, that is identity. And that's part of the mission. So for him, like a service that was all things that could have easily been like pop songs on the radio, but just with Hebrew words, would not be expressing an authentic Jewish identity for him. That'd be expressing an American identity, which is great too, right? And so there's really there's a balance here of how it is that we, through the act of composition and performance of music, establish Jewish identity through musical sound. So just to give a sense of some of his liturgical writing here, this is one of my absolute favorite of his pieces, his Eitz Chaim. This is a recording from this past year's High Holiday service at KAM Isaiah Israel.
Hanacha
I wanted to listen to the whole piece, I promised, but I can't. Even the best part is coming. Right, but that is such a beautiful setting, right? The melody is simple. The choral parts are actually very easy. It gives a wonderful line for with freedom of interpretation for the soloist. Important to note, there was not a cantor that ever worked with Max Janowski at KM Isaiah Israel. There were occasionally like guest cantor types, right? But really, it was always the choir soloists who were singing at the time from up in the balcony above, where he was there with the organ console. So a lot of you know more of Max's liturgical compositions. We're gonna take a second. We're gonna listen to Max's muse, musically B. Horwitz. Now, B was the daughter of a wonderful cantor here in Chicago, and I think it was named Anshel Friedman, and she met Max as when Max had a gig with the Halevi Choral Society with Hyman Resnick conducting, and the two of them hit it off immediately. And she really was the musical muse for which he wrote so much of his music, an incredible amount of his music. Oh, I forgot to say something really important before. Wait. So here I am looking at B, and I was thinking, I forgot to tell an important part of the story of Ilsa, his first wife before, which is that I said she came with him to Tokyo, and then they came to Chicago when they came to New York, and then eventually she came with Max to Chicago, and Max and her worked very, very hard to be able to save Ilsa's mother from Germany, but were unable to. They couldn't get her out. And that tragedy sort of soured Ilsa on Chicago, on the whole experience, and that's part of why she left and moved to New York to begin her own separate life there. I've meant to tell that story before and I forgot, but it's an important part of that story of Max's life and that first wife and that relationship and that how it is that he came to Chicago and how he must have felt when he got here. So that aside, so B. Horwitz, wonderful singer, who so much, and this is unique also because when we think about the sort of cantorial stylings of Max Janowski's music, you would assume it's all written for a man, and the truth is it's not. It was written for her. Almost everything that you think of that is a classic Max Janowski piece was written for B. So we're gonna hear a little bit of her singing Or Zarua. This is a really delightful piece. Yeah, I had to pause. This is one of the funniest things you hear in this recording that's like the most typical of every Max recording with all the different soloists he always worked with. The soloists like to take it in their tempo, which is always slower because you want to sing and you want your notes. And Max Janowski demanded breakneck tempos with every single thing he ever did. He wanted everything to be as fast as the person could get the notes out. So as soon as the choir comes in, it's always at least double the tempo of whatever the soloist was before. I've listened to so many recordings. It's always exactly like this. The soloist sings it kind of slow and he tolerates it, but as soon as he's in charge, boom, there they go. Right? It's a very classic Max style in his concert performances and synagogue performances. Right. Um, so he wrote not only liturgical pieces for so much of the liturgy, way more than a lot of us know, but also pieces for just about every Torah portion out there. I've just looked at one, and there's I don't have time to play this recording, but I have the ability to share with you um, later on YouTube where you can find a performance of this one. There's just every single portion in the Torah has at least one full scale, usually choral pieces um, that are, and they're often dedicated to people. Right here, Rabbi Simeon Maslin was the rabbi at KM at the time that this one was. Right now, they're bat mitzvah, and some of them are really beautiful, extraordinary pieces and they're all different scales. Some of them are quite smaller scale pieces, like little soloistic pieces. Some of them are really more or less full scale oratorio oratorias that are really it's a vast amount of music that he wrote for literally every single portion in the Torah. Really cool pieces. So and almost none of them have been well recorded. So if anyone has interest in making some great recordings, there's a lot of material there of some beautiful stuff for every parsha of the Torah. We're going to go on with another category of his work. He was deeply committed Zionist. He spoke fluent Hebrew himself as a spoken language. My dear teacher, Ellie Schleifer, remembers very fondly when Ellie was here in Chicago doing his PhD at University of Chicago, and he was working at a synagogue in the South Side, and Max would come and play for him and conduct for him, and they would speak in Hebrew together while the rest of the choir didn't understand them, and that was a very fun thing for Max to have, like a secret language to have with a friend. But he really was so committed to Israel, not only in his sort of history and his mother being there, but so much of his music. And one of Max's most unique things as a Jewish composer who loved Zionism, a lot of composers of his exact vintage wrote a lot of arrangements of what you called Palestinian folk song, right? The old school Israeli songs. Almost everyone of that, almost all the classic synagogue composers of the mid 20th century did this. Max did something different, right? So what he did was he took well-established poetry that people knew had melodies that were already like the melody for these poems, and he composed his own settings of them. That's really a unique thing that no one else did this. So first we're going to hear, this is the classic setting of this poem. This is Nachum Nardi at the piano, Rachat Sfira singing. Okay, so that's how everybody knows how this song goes. Anybody who knows from Hebrew song knows that song. It's classic. You can't. The words are by Bialik, right? The words like who saves us from hunger? Who does this? Who does all these amazing things? The traditional answer would be, of course, God. But the answer is work and labor. That's what saves us from all the terrible things in the world. Max, he says, I'll take that Nachum Nardi and I'll up your ante. And he writes his own composition of it.
Mi atzilenu merav, mi achilenu lechem rav, השקנו כוס חלב, למי תודה, למי ברכה, לעבודה ולמלאכה, לעבודה ולמלאכה, לעבודה ולמלאכה, לעבודה, לעבודה. למי תודה, למי ברכה, לעבודה.
Really different, really interesting. It sounds like pure Janowski, but also has the flair of the old Palestinian folk song genre. Really fun. Right. So there's more pieces like that he wrote. He did a lot of those exact things where he took a well-established poem with a well-established melody and wrote his own tunes for it. I don't know anyone else who did that in terms of the old school synagogue composers. Right. He also is another genre that we don't really think of Max as being very prominent in was Yiddish music. Right. You think of really him as being a Hebraicist in many ways, but he loved Yiddish songs. This is one of my absolute favorite recordings of his in Yiddish, right, with B singing. The song Yankala, classic Yiddish lullaby. And this was lovingly prepared from this recording, and like his handwritten. So Max had a lot of concert performances that he did where all he would give to the choir was like just a melody line, and like then there's be choral parts but no accompaniment at all. And some of his beloved disciples out there have been going through some of these old recordings and notating out his accompaniments in order to keep the music alive. So this one I was able to publish in a book that we put out on this 25th yard site of previously unpublished pieces. So let's hear a little bit of this version of Yankala. It's a beautiful arrangement with B. Horowitz singing the solo. It's pretty delicious, but since it's 7:55, I have to stop. But I do want to mention, right? Some of you, especially, I'm seeing Ken looking with interest. I'm guessing, Ken, you probably heard the French influence there, right? So, like, Janowski has a French period where he just all of a sudden got really obsessed with like Debussy and Ravel, and you just hear it in all the pieces from this whole period where there's just this mega French influence in the stuff, the harmonies, the little things here, the little textures. He was spent a lot, and there's some Eric Satie here sometimes in their stuff. He just got really interested in French music for no particular reason that I know of. And there's more Yiddish things to feature. I really wanted to share more, but it's 7:55. A fun historical detail is that in 1983, the congregation bestowed the title of Cantor upon him, right? Notice on September 7th, he's director of music. September 23rd, he's the cantor of the congregation. Right? The synagogue just did that there was no other institution that bestowed upon him the title. The synagogue just did it, which was great in its own way. Different way than we take the title cantor now. But even in 1983, that was unusual. But it's fun to know that it was sometimes he took the title professor because of his time in Tokyo, and then took the title cantor at KAM. Loved some good titles. right? He did a lot of recording in his life. There's so many albums that he made. Here's some samples of them. A lot of these albums you can find online on different Jewish music digital archives today. So you can really, you don't have to just depend on me to get you good recordings. You can find them, right? They exist out there in the world that you can get. I wanted to just mention Gretel here again. Right, Gretel died only a little bit before him, right, 1990. And she was really just so beloved. Today at KM, there's the Max and Gretel Janowski Fund, and the Janowski Fund still sponsors the Yom Kippur Breakfast in Gretel's honor, because it was really known. Gretel was known to be such a hostess and loved putting out food for people. So wanted to really make extra special mention of Gretel here. So you were always saying, how come I didn't talk about Avinu Malkeinu or Sim Shalom, right? How could I not do that? It's 7:57, so we don't have a lot of time here, but I do want to show you this. So what you're looking at in the picture here is the original score of Avinu Malkeinu that Max handed to Rabbi Jacob Weinstein, who is such an incredible and important rabbi in American Jewish history and the synagogue history specifically. So since we have a minute here, I just want to, well, literally a minute, but I want to play you Max telling the story of how Avinu Malkeinu came to be, because it's kind of fun to hear, right? So this is Max.
You mean it's not from Sinai? It's not from Sinai?
Yeah, right. It's not from Sinai. It's from Rabbi Weinstein's kitchen table.
At one time, I was at Rabbi Jacob Weinstein, my friend and teacher, a blessed memory. I was in his apartment. Matter of fact, I stayed at his apartment for a couple of weeks. For one reason or another, he didn't need it. And I sat down at his kitchen table, and I faced the refrigerator. I'm not making this up, this is a fact. And there were some goodies in this refrigerator, and I helped myself to some of these goodies, and I put them on the table. And then I had my music table, which I always have with me, because you never know when an idea comes. Because ideas are that's it. And it came to my mind. And I wrote the Avinu Malkeinu. It is a tune that has its roots in the Jewish ethnic folklore, I might say. It so happens that I wrote it, but I was influenced by the totality of authentic ethnic Jewish music. And we had a very
authentic ethnic Jewish music, and Rabbi Weinstein's goodies. I love that it involves the goodies at the kitchen, right? Right. So that's the origin of Avinu Malkeinu, right there. Is Rabbi Weinstein's kitchen table. Is that the inspiration came to him, and there's his most famous tune. His second most famous tune, of course, is Sim Shalom, which not many people know was dedicated to Ralph here, Ralph Bunch here, assistant to the United Nations Special Commission on Palestine, right, and was the negotiator for the armistice agreement that ended the Israeli War of Independence. Not a Jewish person, right? Not a Jewish man. In fact, a black man, but it was really the was essential to was the person that Max thought of, and that's part of the Sim Shalom story. Is that Sim Shalom's own melody is not exactly a Jewish mode until the Cantor comes in and makes it very Jewish. It stays in a very, like a little bit of like a Dorian kind of binary place in between things that has meant to be sort of universal. This is Max playing an introduction to it. Loved long introduction. I think his introduction, Cantor Corey Winter told me a story that one time they were invited to like a Chicago news show to do like a little performance and part of the morning spot. It's a news show. It has they have like a 2-minute spot or whatever it was. And they were supposed to do a number, and Max starts playing his piano introduction. And turns out he never got to the song because he was so inspired with his piano introduction that the singers never got to sing because he just kept on going with his introduction until they were cut off. He just loved a good long introduction to a piece. So here's always this question: like, what is the future of Janowski's music? Um, I'm only going to share the tiniest second of this because it's 8:02. But we.
You're okay. We're good.
I really believe I believe that there is something special in his music, and that some of it needs to be rearranged and some of it needs to be reloved in order to keep it alive today. And I do some of that work myself, to take some of his melodies and reframe them in ways that we can hear them in today's synagogue, where the sound is as fresh as it once was. So I asked my friend, and I know a friend of Am Shalom, Cantor Jonathan Commissar, good friend of your Cantors also, if he would take on one of Max's most classic pieces, his Vishamru. Vishameru V'nai Yisrael, an elegant piece, one of my congregation's favorites. And if Jonathan would recraft it in a way that felt to him to express something of these days, and a new contemporary sound. And this is just one example, a little bit of an overblown example for regular use. This is not of a shamer anyone's going to do every week, but it really is an extraordinary thing of taking this root material. And you can hear the whole thing. We did the Max's 25th yard site. We did this huge concert at which Cantor Markowitz performed. And you can find that whole video on the YouTubes. But here is just a piece of that Vishamru as recast 5 years ago. I look a little younger then. That was a high note, I know. Well, so the piece goes on in really beautiful ways, but I'm going to stop there for a minute because I think as the Cantor of Am Isaiah Israel, I take very seriously that part of my job is to keep the legacy of Max Janowski growing and changing, and keep some of those wonderful pieces alive exactly faithfully the way he meant them to be, and to find new ways for others of them to get there out into the world. And it's something I do not only for me, but I think for all of us, because there's something of such different and special beauty in what he did for us at KM Israel, for the entire Chicago area, for the entire world, that is really worth celebrating and continuing. So it's 8:06, so I went 6 minutes over. If I can, I can assume we have like a second if there's any questions that I may or may not know the answers, because I don't know everything. But maybe someone has questions or thoughts.
I think Rabbi Steve.
I was just going to say, in true Janowski form, that was just the introduction. So you've got like another hour.
That's exactly right.
I think it's so fascinating every time I learn about Janowski from you, and it's been quite a few times now. I learn something new every time about his personality, about his musicality, about his inspirations, just his life. It's so interesting, and it's so important what you're doing to really keep his legacy alive, and to bring all of this information to us. We're so blessed to have you doing this work.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you,
And
Cantor.
thanks for being with us tonight.
My honor. My honor.
Thank you. Thank you. That Yankala brought me to such tears, I can't even begin to tell you, as it would have Andrea's grandfather, Am Shalom. It just, the tears came. Thank you. It was beautiful.
I guess it means, Cantor Markowitz, you better sing that song with that arrangement pretty soon.
We'll have to cook something up.
Yeah, I bet.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or thoughts that they'd like to share? Linda.
Having the honor and privilege of singing with Max when I was younger, and knowing about David, his quirks about the Tempe and everything like that, and knowing VP, may they rest in peace, and Greta with the hostess would always, of course, feed us. But I was so intrigued. You always intrigue me, but his history of his parentage, he never really discussed that. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because now, having sung with him, singing myself now, I know about his background, and I feel like the circle is closed. And I thank you so much for that, and for you continuing this incredible legacy. May it live on forever. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Ken
of growing up with Max Janowski. We came from Germany in 1938, and we joined KAM, and the people that sponsored us from Germany were members of KAM, and so therefore we joined. And he taught me how to sing, and I was part of his early choir. And my 1947 bar mitzvah was one of the first bar mitzvahs at KAM, as we were coming out of a classical reform and moving more modern. And so I remember him and his music, and as we became part of Beth Am in 1948, much of his music followed us with Bernie Nam and Hans Lerman as our choir directors at Beth Am.
Thank you so
awesome.
much, Ralph. Amazing.
Hey, Bernard Nam was the choir director at Beth Am?
Yes.
Oh my God, I remember him. I did his funeral.
Ken Smith.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's just Cantor, Berger, excuse me. I had promoted you.
I don't know if that's a promotion for me.
But anyway, it was really
Demotion.
Demotion.
The filling in of so many blanks things that I had never known about Max Janowski, and you did it so interestingly. I notice that you've put out a book that you've edited things. May I ask you how one gets such a book?
Yeah, KAMII just well, you just come to this, and you know what, Ken? You'll talk to me and you'll get one. Don't worry.
I'll
We
make it
we
happen.
sell them at this. We sell them at the synagogue. As a just it's as a sort of small amount of money for the synagogue. It's really it's a beautiful volume of thing. First of all, there's great pictures and scans and things like that of some of those great original things. And everything has been retyped and beautifully edited and made ready. And there's I'm getting close to having enough material for a volume 2 sometime soon of more stuff that has never that was not published in the past. So really excited about getting more out there. So I'll work it out for you, Ken. Don't worry.
Listen, thank you so much for that and for your presentation as well. Really very, very interesting. I just loved it. And particularly hearing the Yankova, I thought it was.
It's a beautiful,
gorgeous.
beautiful setting. For anyone who has very precious memories of Max Janowski, if you let me know, there's a group reforming that's call themselves the Max Janowski Society that is looking to do some oral histories of people who have great stories of him. Cantor Corey Winter is standing behind that, and they're building up. They want to do some recordings coming up soon, so they're really trying to build up on the Janowski legacy in all kinds of ways. And I'm helping work with them. So if you think you have unique things to share, I want to connect you with those people. Andrea Cantor Markowitz mentioned at the beginning that I have an album coming out soon. It does have one Janowski piece on it, which is one of the really unusual pieces. It's an Am Shalom that I promise you've never heard. That is just an extraordinary piece. It's another one from a sort of French period that is a truly extraordinary piece. The album, as Cantor Markowitz mentioned, is all music by American Jewish refugee composers, people who had to flee their homes and found their home here. And in this moment of such division in our country, and where immigration itself is a topic of political ridiculousness, it's important for me and my co-conspirator on this, pianist Joyce Rosenzweig, who has also been at Am Shalom, to make a profound statement about the important cultural contributions that refugees have made to America in general. It's being released on the Arcantus label, which is a German classical label. It'll be available everywhere music is sold, like all the online services and everywhere. It's under the Naxos distribution. Sort of mid-February is when it'll begin to be available. And on Sunday, March 6th, we're going to have a fabulous streamed event to really release the album properly and get going on some, hopefully when COVID is in a different place, recitals and concerts around to really work together with Hias to promote this important message that refugees are an essential part of our nation and our heritage, and that these American Jewish refugee composers brought something extraordinary to our world. So join with me in that event on March 6th. There'll be more information out there about how to get it once we get closer to it, and find the album and listen to it and enjoy the music that is most of the album are pieces that have never before been recorded. So it's all old music that is made new. So something I'm really proud of.
Cantor, Berger, thank you. But Cantor's Markowitz and Staple, if you would just get a list of anyone who wants that book. I already wrote a donation to the High Holiday Breakfast Fund, the Janowski Fund at KAM. I love the fact that it's in both their names. So donations coming your way for that, and anyone who wants a book should be
Let
covered.
us know.
Cantor,
Wonderful. Thank you, Rabbi.
Let us know. Thanks, everyone.
Just write in the chat if you'd like one, or send us an email, and we'll get that list together.
David, thank you so much. This was fascinating, and congratulations on your album. I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, thank you, Orna. Thank you.
This would not be complete if we did not hear from the person who helped to bear you, your mom, who I see here.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to
you.
share with you a story about David and all of this that I think you will appreciate. when David first came back to Chicago, it was like a miracle as parents that he took a congregation here. But I went to visit him in the office at KAM, and he was like a kid in a candy store. He kept saying, Max Janowski's ghost is in the room. And he kept opening drawers and showing me more and more music that he was uncovering and loving every second of it. And it's been several years and he's still uncovering, and the passion is still there. It's really wonderful.
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Carol.
And we love learning from you, Cantor Berger. So just a couple of announcements before we close tonight. Some of our upcoming Music at Am Shalom events and just upcoming events in general. So we have 2 more Tuesday sessions with Rachel Korazim looking at the poetry of Leah Goldberg with a bit of live music at Am Shalom sprinkled in. So this takes place on Zoom at 1 p.m. our time, Central Time. And again, it's the next 2 Tuesdays. And then on the docket for next month's Music at Am Shalom programs, we have our Music Monday Israel edition continuing with Shimon Smith on February 14th at our lunch hour, 12:30. And then our next Jewish Music Heritage Learning Series will take place later that week on Thursday, February 17th. Same time, same place on Zoom, and we will learn about the Lind family cantors from Cantor Joanna Lind. And don't forget tomorrow to come by the temple for a challah in the morning between 9:30 and 10:30. And if you're planning to come for Shabbat, please register. Rabbi and Cantor, did I miss anything? I'm sure I did.
From 12 to 5 tomorrow, we're going to have a food truck in the driveway.
Yeah.
Soul and Smoke. So come by for lunch, and come by for a frozen challah from 9:30 to 10:30. We'd love to see you.
Thanks, Rabbi. So that concludes our announcements for
Thanks,
the evening.
everyone.
Thank
So
you so
good to
much
be
for being
together.
with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We really enjoyed it. Thank you.
As always, David, you never cease to amaze.
No, my honor, my pleasure. Thank you.